Hello everyone, Maddox here, welcome back to the Pokhistorian, the show where I get on this camera and just talk about whatever I want sometimes. Today I want to talk about collecting other things besides Pokemon, because as we know, Pokemon collecting has become very, very expensive, and sometimes it may even feel like if you didn't get in a few years ago, it's almost impossible to get in now if you want to get some of the good stuff that everybody else wants. So, I mean, even me, who's fortunate enough to have some pretty good stuff, I'm at a position where I've been kind of switching some of my interests over to collecting things in my other hobbies just because I think some of these prices on things are a bit ridiculous. So I just thought it'd be fun to do a video where I show you some of the other things I collect and where I've been spending my money just for a little fun. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, obviously, the first thing is Magic the Gathering. Used to play Magic from about 2012 to about 2016, and always found it to be a very fun game, a lot more fun than playing the Pokemon card game. And this is one of my favorite cards, Avacyn, Angel of Hope. She's a super powerful angel lady and just really cool, almost looks like kind of like a female Sephiroth from Final Fantasy. Very powerful card. So I collect some of her cards. Here's another one. This is her right here, Archangel Avacyn. And this one can actually flip and she turns into like a really kind of evil bad angel. Definitely giving off Sephiroth vibes there. So yeah, I mean, like, the thing is with Magic, like, unfortunately in some ways, a lot of like the coolest cards aren't worth like next to anything at all. Which is fun if you're trying to collect, but you do like to see some of the things you collect have some value. But I like to collect Magic sometimes. There's some really cool sets. Obviously, we've opened up Final Fantasy on this channel and stuff, the new Final Fantasy Magic set. So just something you might want to consider collecting there. Let's move on to something else, shall we? Another thing I've been focusing on lately is Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have a funny history because when Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out, I was still very much into Pokemon and I was kind of mad in some ways because I was like a weird little teenager. I was kind of mad that like everybody was like losing interest in Pokemon and like moving on to something else because I still thought Pokemon was the coolest. But I watched my brother get into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I watched him and his friends play and I thought, you know what, that card game is actually kind of fun. And I started watching the silly little show, and before you know it, I was actually picking up some Yu-Gi-Oh cards and I played for a couple years casually. I never really got into it like seriously, but I would play with my friends and stuff. And it was a pretty fun game. And this is one of my favorite cards from around when I was collecting Dark Magician of Chaos. Used to have this card back in the day. This is actually a first edition one. I got this for like 200 something dollars, like just a couple months ago. And it just goes to show you that, like, I get it, Yu-Gi-Oh is out of favor, may stay out of favor forever. But the fact that I can get a first edition card, like of one of the original Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and one that's so cool like this one, to me is like a freaking steal. And it's been a lot of fun lately just to go back into Yu-Gi-Oh and pick up a few cards that I really, really like from when I used to play and stuff. So that's another fun thing I've been involved with. What else we got here? Okay. Another thing I like to get is autographs by people. I like collecting autographs, and whether I meet the people in person, have them sign like the game or the movie or whatever, or whether I buy them online or like at a specialty shop, I think it's just cool to have like autographs from some people that I thought were pretty neat. And here we have Dragon Ball FighterZ. It's a really fun game for the Nintendo Switch. It's signed by the voices of Goku and Vegeta, which of course are Sean Chamel and Chris Sabat. Got to meet them both in person, so this is pretty cool. Actually have this on display. Just a very fun thing to have. I got a few other autographs from my house from some of my favorite bands. I have an autograph from like The Police, if you've heard of that band, Matchbox 20, a few famous like actors and stuff like that. But definitely make for cool display pieces. Another thing I'm involved with, although I'd say like not so much actively involved with, just more out of happenstance, is I have like a pretty substantial like retro video game collection. And for a lot of these games, like here I have Mega Man X3. If you know the Mega Man X games, that's probably one of my absolute favorite video game series of all time. But I end up having a lot of these boxes and instruction manuals of like all these old games because back when I was a kid, my dad was like adamant about like saving the boxes and the instruction manuals and stuff. So because of his foresight, I'm very blessed to have a pretty large collection of like vintage like video game boxes and stuff. So I have these on display too. And I'm just very happy that he was so insightful on that because it's ended up being a true blessing. These a lot of these games that I have are true collector's items. And to have like original copies of the boxes and instructions from Mega Man X1 through X3 along with the games and everything is really freaking cool. So that's another thing I'd say that I have a collection of. I'm not really buying so many like new retro video games, but I do have a pretty great collection of like retro ones that I got when I was a kid thanks to my dad. So, and we got one more thing I'll show you. Am I going to be able to fit this here? This is something I picked up more recently. Legos. So to me, Legos are a lot of fun and are just as collectible as any kind of trading card. In fact, they're a lot more cool to display too. I mean, look at this. This is a pirate ship I got here. I went to like a Lego convention about 3 weeks ago and I picked this up sealed. And you know, the smart thing obviously to do would be to keep this sealed right, but I was like, no, I'm gonna have fun because I want to have some fun. So I got to build this Lego pirate ship. And you know, some of these awesome Lego sets, you can get them for like $300, $400, and like, yeah, maybe that sounds like a lot. And you know, you'll see people in the Lego community complaining about all these expensive Lego sets, but to me, like when I compare like Lego to Pokemon, I'm like, Lego people, y'all don't know how good you have it. You can get a whole freaking Lego set like this for $400. Like, how cool is that? And this one's a little bit more expensive because it's vintage, that's why. Maybe a better example, I'll show you this one real quick too. This train I got here, yeah, I have a whole Lego town. But anyways, this train I got right here was $400. I picked this up a few weeks ago. And, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's too expensive. You know, how can Lego charge so much for a set? But it's like, to me, coming from the Pokemon space and how expensive all these Pokemon cards are, paying $400 for this really cool train based on the original Orient Express, which is a famous train over in Europe, doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me. So anyways, those are just some things I'm involved with. There are a lot of different ways that you can explore your need and desire to collect beyond Pokemon cards. And a lot of these other things you can collect are either around the same price and are just as cool or even cooler or even a bit cheaper. Anyways, thanks for watching.